All right, everyone, I'm going to be going over your solving systems of linear equations by substitution quiz with you. I noticed that a few of you were struggling with some basic things like distributing, a negative times a negative is a positive, or a positive times a negative is a negative. I was seeing a lot of positive and negative mistakes. And then the easiest thing I was seeing was when students were getting answers, like, say for this one, if I got 3, 4, right? I did all my work, I got 3, 4. I didn't see anyone double checking, so if I would have plugged this back in, negative 2 times 3 plus 4 equals 5, I would have gotten negative 6 plus 4 equals 5. Well, negative 2 doesn't equal 5, so then I would know my answer was wrong, and I could have tried again. So I didn't really see anyone double checking their work either. So if you choose to retake, I would highly recommend that you double check your work. Okay, so remember when we're doing substitution, you need to, first step is to get an equation to say x equals or y equals. And then step 2 is to take that equation that says x or y equals and substitute it in for the value. You solve, you're going to get an answer, and then that answer you plug back into that first equation, right? And we always write our answer as an ordered pair. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to check, do I have something that says y equals or x equals? And I don't right off the bat, right? So then I'm going to find a coefficient of 1. And coefficient is the number in front of a variable. So I see here. Okay. I see that y has a I see that y has a coefficient of 1. So I'm going to make this equation say y equals. In order to do that, I need to move this negative 2x on the right side of the equal sign to the left, right? And in order to do that, I must cancel it on the side it's on. Remember? So the opposite or the inverse of negative 2x is positive 2x. And what I do to one side, I must do to the other to keep it balanced. Okay? So these cancel. So I now have y equals 2x plus 5. Okay, I now have an equation that says y equals, right? So I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to plug it into this equation down here. So my value for y is 2x plus 5, and I'm going to plug that in for y. So you need to rewrite your equation, right? So I now have 6x plus 2. My value for y now is 2x plus 5 equals 20. Okay, so now I'm solving for x, right? Because if you look at the equation you wrote, there's only x variables. So first thing I need to do, I need to distribute. So now I have 6x plus 4x plus 10 equals 20. All right, now I'm going to combine like terms. So 6x plus 4x gives me 10x. So I have 10x plus 10 equals 20. Okay, my variable is on the left side, and I'm going to keep it there. So that means I need to move my numbers to the right. So I'm going to do the opposite of positive 10, which is negative 10. And what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So now I have 10x equals 10. Well, this is a one-step equation. So this is 10 times x. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So now I have x equals 1. Okay? I'm going to take that value for x, and I'm going to plug it in here, because this equation already says y equals, so that would be the smartest option, right? So I'm going to have y equals 2 times 1 plus 5. So y equals 2 plus 5, which is 7. So now I write my answer as an ordered pair of 1, 7. Okie dokie, let's do the next one. Okay, I do have an equation that says x or y equals, right? This one right here says y equals x plus 2. In order to plug that in, though, you will have to get rid of these parentheses in the second equation first. So we're going to distribute first. So I'm going to share 4 to all terms inside the parentheses. So I now have 2x or 2y equals 4x minus 4. Okay, and I'm going to plug in x plus 3 for y. I'm going to rewrite. So now I'm going to have 2 times the value of y, which is x plus 3, equals 4x minus 4. All right, I'm going to have to distribute again. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 3 is 6. All right, remember, to solve for a variable, variables must be on one side, numbers on the other. So I'm going to move my variable to the left. Remember, if you want to move it to the right, that's fine. I just find it more comfortable to move to the left, numbers on the right. So I'm going to subtract 4x, so it cancels on this right side, and also do that to the left because you have to keep it balanced. So now I have negative 2x, because if I have negative 4 and I add 2, I'm getting back closer to 0. So I have negative 2x plus 6 equals negative 4. Okay, my variable is now on the left, but I have to move my numbers to the right. So now I'm going to do the opposite of positive 6 on both sides. Okay, so now I have negative 2x equals negative 10. This is a one-step equation. I divide by negative 2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So I got x equals 5. I'm going to come up here and plug it into my original equation. Because it already says y equals, that's the easiest thing to do. So I have y equals 5 plus 3, which is 8. And you need to write your answer as an ordered pair. All right, so first thing I need to do is check if I have an equation that says x equals or y equals. And I don't right now. But I do have a coefficient of 1. So I'm going to make this equation say y equals. And in order to do so, I have to move that 2x that's on the left side of my equal sign to the right. So in order to cancel negative 2, I need to add negative 2. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides to keep it balanced. So now I have y equals 2x minus 1. Okay, I can't plug in that value for y yet because that equation on the bottom has parentheses. You could right now, but then you would have to distribute 2 things, and the more steps you could do to do less mistakes, the better, right? So let's distribute first. We have to distribute 3 to both terms inside the parentheses, so to x and 3. So I now get 3y equals 3x plus 9. Now I can take that value for y, which is 2x minus 1, and plug it in. So I'm going to rewrite. I have 3 times 2x minus 1, close my parenthesis, equals 3x plus 9. Okay, I'm going to have to distribute again. So we share to all terms inside. 3 times 2x is 6x, and 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And I just rewrite the rest of the equation. Okay, I want to move my variable to the left and my numbers to the right. So I'm going to add 3 because the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. And we need the numbers to cancel on this side. So I now have 6x equals 3x plus 12. Okay, well I now need to move my 3x to the left side of the equal sign. So the opposite of positive 3x is negative 3x, which those cancel. I do the same to the other side. So now I have 3x equals 12. And now I just have a one-step equation. So I'm just going to divide by 3 to isolate the variable, and I get x equals 4. I'm going to take x equals 4, and I'm going to plug it into this equation here. So now I have y equals 2 times 4 minus 1. And 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 1 is 7. And you need to write your answer as an ordered pair. All right, moving on to number 4. So first thing, remember you need to check. Do I have an equation that says y equals or x equals? Yes, I do. I have one that says x equals. So I'm going to take this value, which is 10 minus 6y, and I'm going to plug that in for x. So I'm going to have 4 times 10 minus 6y, close your parenthesis, minus 2y equals 14. Okay, so we're solving for y, right? Because if I look at this equation, the only variables there are y. So we need to get rid of the parentheses first. We distribute. 4 times 10 is 40. And 4 times negative 6y is negative 24y. And I rewrite the rest of my equation. So minus 2y equals 14. Okay, I'm going to combine like terms. So I have negative 24 minus 2, which gives me negative 26. So I have 40 minus 26y equals 14. Okay, I don't have any variables I have to move, but I do need to move that 40 to the right side of the equal sign because my variable is already on the left. So the opposite of 40 is negative 40. Those equal 0 now. I do the same to the other side of the equal sign. So now I have negative 26y equals negative 26. Okay, this is a one-step equation. So to isolate the variable, I just have to divide now. So I'm going to divide by negative 26. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So y equals positive 1. I am going to plug that in to this equation that says x equals, because that will give me the least amount of steps to find x, right? So now I have x equals 10 minus 6 times, and y is 1. So 10 minus 6 is 4. X equals 4. And you should always write your answer as an ordered pair. Some of you were writing 1, 4. So just make sure you're checking, did you really solve for x, or did you do y first and then x? So just make sure you're double checking. Okay. All right, my first step is to see if one of my equations says x equals or y equals. And I want you to look carefully because this one says x minus 2y equals 11. So it doesn't say x equals, but you could get it to solve it to say x equals. But look here, I have 3x plus 2 equals y. So one of my equations does say y equals, it was just written backwards. So if you wanted to rewrite it, you could, right? If that was easier for you. You could also, or you could have had y equals 3x plus 2. Doesn't matter what way you write it. Okay, so I'm going to plug in that value for y. So the 3x plus 2. And I'm going to plug that into the equation above. So let's do 3x plus 2 for y. Okie dokie, let's rewrite. We have x minus 2 times 3x plus 2 equals 11. All right, first things first, we need to distribute the -2. So now I'm going to have x equals -6x minus 4 equals 11. Okay, +1 minus 6. That gives us -5x minus 4 equals 11. Okay, I need to move that -4 to the right side because my variable is on the left, so I need all my numbers on the right. The inverse of -4 is +4. That now equals 0. I add 4 to the other side. So now I have -5x equals 15. This is a one-step equation, and the opposite of multiplication is division. And a positive being divided by a negative is a negative. So I get x equals -3. Okay, I'm going to plug that into this equation here that says y equals 3x plus 2. So now I get y equals 3 times -3 plus 2. 3 times -3 is -9 plus 2. So y equals -7. And then I write my answer as an ordered pair. Now, if for some reason you didn't plug it into the same one I did, right? So let's plug it in for this one here. X minus 2y equals 11. So now we have x is -3 minus 2y equals 11. Okay, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So now I have -2y equals 14. I divide by -2. You still get y equals -7. So essentially, it does not matter which equation you plug it into, you will get the same answer. Okay, let's do this word problem. The talent show committee sold a total of 530 tickets. Student tickets cost $3 each, and the adult tickets cost $4 each. If the total receipts were 1,740, how many of each type of ticket were sold? We need to write 2 equations and solve by substitution. So remember, every time we read a word problem, we find an X and a Y, right? So let's put X for student tickets and Y for adult. So first thing I would have done is put X is student tickets and Y is the amount of adult tickets sold. Okay, next I'm going to look, and we do have 2 totals. So we can write 2 equations because we have 2 totals. So something is going to equal those 2 totals, right? So let's think of the first one. We have a total amount of 530 tickets. So let's think about this out loud. If all the tickets altogether are 530, that means a certain amount of student and a certain amount of adult is going to give me 530. So the amount of student plus the amount of adults sold is going to give me my total. Okay, so that's our first equation. Our second one we can write, because we still don't know how many is sold of each, right? That's what we're trying to find. But we do know that the cost of students is 3, so I'm going to write 3x plus the cost of adult is 4y, and we know that the total altogether was 1,740. Now you could look at that and you go, okay, if I know a certain amount of student tickets times the price is going to give me an amount, and a certain amount of adult tickets times that price is going to give me an amount. And those 2 prices together are going to equal 1,740. Does that make sense? So now we have our two equations. Now remember, we need to get one equation to say x or y equals. So I'm just going to subtract y from both sides. So I now have x equals negative y plus 530. Now, if you wrote 530 minus y, that's perfectly fine. Or if you solved for y instead and you had y equals negative x plus 530, again, perfectly fine. Okay, so now we have a value, right? We have a value for x, which is negative y plus 530. And so we're going to plug that in right here for x. Okay, so I now have 3 times negative y plus 530 plus 4y equals 1,740. Okay, and I know that 3 times negative y is going to give me negative 3y, and 3 times 530 gives me 590. I rewrite the rest of the equation. Okay, I'm going to have variables on the left, numbers on the right. So I'm going to combine like terms. And negative 3 plus positive 4 gives me positive 1y. And then I'm going to subtract negative 1,590, right? Because I need that number to cancel on the left side. So remember when we learned about additive inverse property, a number times its or plus its inverse gives you 0. So I also need to subtract that from the right side. So y now equals 150. Okay. I'm going to take that value and plug it in to this equation here. So now I'm going to have x equals negative, my value for y was 150 plus 530. Well, I know you could just do 530 minus 150, which gives you 380. So then it's a word problem, so I'm going to answer with words, right? So I would put they sold 150 adult tickets and 380 student tickets. All right, let's look at the last two problems. So we do these on homework and on quizzes pretty often, right? So if I looked at your little rubric here, you need to correct the error, right? So you need to show the correct work and get the correct answer. And then you need to explain what they did wrong. So describe in words and correct the error in the linear system problem below. We're going to solve by substitution. So first things first is I have my two equations here. So these are the two equations I'm going to be using. And one of them already says x or y equals. So I'm going to plug in x minus 2 for y. So I'm going to have 4 in parentheses, x minus 2 plus x equals 17. I'm going to distribute 4 to x and negative 2. So now I have 4x minus 8 plus x equals 17. I'm going to combine like terms, and 4x plus x. Wait a second. Yes, sorry, lost my train of thought. 4x plus x is 5x minus 8 equals 17. I need to add 8 to both sides. So now I get 5x equals 25. I divide by 5, which gives me x equals 5. Okay, they got, for x, 19 over 5, or 3 4/5. So let's look at our work to their work. Okay, looks like in this step, we have the same. Then they have 4x minus 2 plus x equals 17. We have 4x minus 8 plus x equals 17. So we know that the problem lies right here. They did not distribute 4 to negative 2. So when you explain your error, you're going to say that they did not follow the distribution property correctly. They did not distribute the 4 to the negative 2. And then let's finish this out. So we're going to plug in x. We're going to plug in 5 for x. So now we have y equals 5 minus 2. Y is 3. So the correct answer is 5, 3. And then you would explain their reasoning is because they did not distribute 4 to all the terms inside the parenthesis. Okay, we have 2 equations again. And one of them already says y equals. So we're going to show our correct work. We're going to plug in negative 2x plus 9 for y. So I have 4x minus, the value for y is negative 2x plus 9 equals negative 15. Okay, remember when we talked about invisible math, that there is technically an invisible 1, a 1 coefficient in front of a variable. So really there's technically an invisible 1 here, right? So you would distribute negative 1 to all terms inside the parenthesis. So I'm going to distribute, which gives me now 4x. A negative times a negative is a positive, so plus 2x. A negative times a positive is a negative. Minus 9 equals negative 15. Okay, I have my x's on the left side. I need to move my number to the right side. So the opposite of negative 9 is positive 9. So now I have 4x plus 2x equals negative 6. I'm going to combine like terms. 4x plus 2x is 6x. I divide by 6. X equals negative 1. Okay, I'm going to plug that value in to this equation that says y equals. So now I have y equals negative 2 times negative 1 plus 9. A negative times a negative is a positive, so plus 2 plus 9, y equals 11. So the correct answer is negative 1, 11. Now we're going to compare our work to their work. So looks like in this first step they have 4x minus negative 2x plus 9 equals negative 15. And that's what we have, right? The second step, they have 4x plus 2x plus 9 equals negative 15. But we have negative 9. So we know that the error that they did was they did not distribute this negative to this negative 1 to the 9, because that should be negative 9. So that's what you should have explained in your answer with a full sentence. Okay, if you have any questions, please just message me through Teams, or you can talk to me about it Monday. Thanks.